Hi guys, James here. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming to watch. And today is a little video about this Marshall amp, which is a reissue of the JTM45, which was a very early Marshall amp designed around the bass breaker, Fender bass breaker circuit, which was probably all the rage back in those days. Still a popular style of amp today. And it's a plexi amp. Now that means that it has no master volume and that it can essentially, you can't separate the volume and the gain. So as you turn up the dial, the volume dial, the gain increases and it can get loud very quickly as you try and achieve that sound that you want. So it does take a little bit of getting used to. And there's another thing I thought you might find interesting, but it's to do with how you plug the cable in, or cables, should we say. But I'll leave that for a second. All I wanted to do to start with was just show you what this Marshall amp sounds like clean. Now I'm running through the aux box using a cabinet simulation. Let me just tell you which one I'm using. So I'm using one called Connie Blue Comp. Just to let you know that that means it's a 1x12 with what looks like an Alnico blue, and then using a couple of different mics. And I'm going to turn off the reverb. This amp hasn't got any reverb. Okay, so if we roll back the high treble channel, we get the sort of cleanest Marshall sound. Which I think sound fantastic. They're completely different from the sort of Fender, more scooped Fender sound. And I think these are a bit more in your face. It's more even across the frequencies. So if we were to turn all the dials back on the EQ, I just want to see what that does. So you can see there's nothing really sticking out. If we start by turning the bass up, the middle, do the same with the treble. So you can see there's nothing too extreme with this amp. If I just add a bit of presence and I turn the bass back to where I normally sort of keep it, push the middles a little bit more, turn the treble back a tiny bit. Let's start to roll up that high treble. So you can hear that it's already starting to break up nicely. But it's still essentially clean. So it's got a nice bit of bite now, which I'm enjoying. And we'll go right near the top. So it gets a little bit muddy on this channel, I think, as you push it up. So it's not ideal, but you know, it does. certainly gets a bit angry, which is cool. Right, let's roll that all the way off. Now you'll see that you've seen I've got the little cable plugged in to some of the other channels, and you can essentially jump the channels. By having it plugged in, you can then use both channels at the same time. So now we can use the normal. And I think I prefer the tone of this one, really. It's got a bit more roundness to it. So you can hear it's got that really quite round, tone, and it's very, very soulful, I guess. But now if we start to introduce the high treble, and I think that's where it really starts to come alive, and that's the brilliance of this amp, is it's pretty flexible. You know, in this day and age, we're so used to having things like the Kemper, or we're used to having the boutique amps, which really give you a lot of flexibility. So many stomp boxes and different, you know, helix and zoom things. But essentially with this, we've got one type of tone that has a range of like volumes, bite, crunch, and things like that, but it doesn't change hugely. And it just allows you to dial in a simple tone that you're happy with. And I mean, yes, it is for more sort of retro vintage sound. There you go, guys. I mean, essentially there's not a huge amount to show you about this amp, but it's something I always wanted to have, was just a Marshall head. I'm not really into the more modern Marshall sound, say from the JTM800 onwards, and if I do fancy that tone, the Kemper has a good profile for that. This amp, I love it for so many reasons. You know, it's got that vintage feel and sound to it. I think it looks fantastic. To me, it sounds fantastic. It's got just enough flexibility to give me a few different tones, but they're all of that same Marshall, early Marshall character. And, you know, I don't think this is the amp for someone that wants a huge pedal platform. I don't think it's the amp for someone who needs versatility, so a gigging musician or anything like that, unless you want that particular sound, folk, blues, early rock. And for that, I think it's great. You need an attenuator if you're going to use it at home, as with loads of these head amps, the big heads. You know, there's plenty of wattage here. I think it's 35 or 40 watts. So it's super loud. I mean, I've got it attenuated down a lot. I'll just turn it up a little bit. And yeah, really, as you turn back the attenuation, it gets louder and it comes alive a lot. And I love that. So there is a time and a place for that. And certainly it can go a lot louder than that. So anyway, I hope you might have just learned a little bit about this amp if you were curious. Or if you were deciding whether it was for you or not, you might know a bit better if it is. But otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And give this video a thumbs up. See you next time. Cheers.